being among the first philosophers to seriously question the value of existence. Arthur Schopenhauer uniquely combined Eastern and Western thought while introducing the arts as a significant philosophical subject. He stands as one of the most profound and somber figures in Western philosophy. Born in 1788 in what is now Gdansk, Poland, Schopenhauer spent much of his childhood in Hamburg, Germany, after his family relocated there when he was 5. Coming from a wealthy family, his father was a successful international merchant. He was expected to follow a business career. Yet, early on, Schopenhauer showed little interest in commerce, instead drawn to academic pursuits. A European trip with his parents, intended to prepare him for business, exposed him to widespread suffering and poverty, deepening his desire to study the world's nature, particularly its negative aspects, through scholarship. Rejecting the predetermined path in business, he enrolled at the University of Göttingen in 1809. By his 3rd semester, he focused more on philosophy. The following year, he transferred to the University of Berlin to study under leading philosophers of the time. However, Schopenhauer quickly grew frustrated with academic philosophy, finding it overly obscure, disconnected from real-life concerns, and often influenced by theology elements he disliked. He left formal academia and spent the next decade independently writing and reflecting. By age 30, Schopenhauer published 2 works that defined his career and presented a complete philosophical system he never altered, ultimately shaping Western thought. His dissertation, On the Fourfold Root of the Principle of Sufficient Reason, laid the groundwork, while his major work, The World as Will and Representation, outlined his entire system, including metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, aesthetics, and value theory. Although these works later became influential, they initially went largely unnoticed. Throughout his 30s and 40s, Schopenhauer worked unsuccessfully as a university lecturer and translator of French prose into English, continuing to write sporadically. His lectures drew little interest, his translations were ignored, and his philosophical writings remained overlooked. Only in his 50s, after publishing a collection of essays and aphorisms in 1851, did he gain notable recognition, which he maintained until his death in 1860 at age 72. Schopenhauer's philosophy built significantly on Immanuel Kant's work, particularly Kant's transcendental idealism. Schopenhauer saw himself as completing Kant's system, proposing that the world we experience is solely a mental representation shaped by our senses and cognitive processes. As such, we cannot know the true nature of external objects beyond this perception. Unlike Kant, however, Schopenhauer argued that no plurality of objects exists beyond our experience. Instead, there is a singular, unified reality, an essence or force driving existence beyond time, space, and objectification. He explored this force by focusing on the experience of living in the body, the only access we have to reality not purely as mental representation, but as immediate subjective experience. He identified this core as an unconscious, restless striving for survival, nourishment, and reproduction, calling it the will to live. This led to his central idea: reality consists of 2 aspects: 1, the multiplicity of things as they appear to our consciousness, and 2, the unified force of the will, which inspired the title of his masterwork, The World as Will and Representation. It's important to clarify that Schopenhauer's concept of will is not about conscious intention or human-like desires. Rather, it is a blind, unconscious force without a specific goal other than its own continuation. The material world operates through this will, constantly moving, striving, consuming, and manifesting violently to sustain itself. Schopenhauer's philosophy responds to Kant and Western thought, but also incorporates notable elements of Hinduism and Buddhism. His conclusions about reality closely align with these traditions, particularly Buddhism's view of suffering and dissatisfaction inherent in existence. This makes Schopenhauer one of the earliest Western philosophers to systematically blend Eastern and Western perspectives. Reflecting Buddhist influence, he maintained a distinctly pessimistic outlook. He wrote, "Unless suffering is the direct and immediate object of life, our existence must entirely fail of its aim. Misfortune in general is the rule. He described the will as a malevolent force to which individuals become subject, deceived by their own minds and bodies into acting against their true interests to perpetuate it. Since the will has no ultimate purpose beyond continuation, it can never be satisfied, and neither can we as its expressions. This drives endless consumption of beings, objects, ideas, and goals, producing temporary satisfaction quickly replaced by dissatisfaction. Schopenhauer stated, "Human life must be some kind of mistake. Even when needs are met, all that remains is a state of painlessness, leading to boredom." To cope with this bleak reality, Schopenhauer proposed two main approaches: engagement with arts and philosophy, and asceticism, the renunciation of desires and self-indulgence to the bare minimum. Through asceticism, he believed one could deny the will its sustenance and thereby overcome it, though he acknowledged this was difficult for most people. For the average person, he recommended abandoning ideals of happiness and pleasure, focusing instead on minimizing pain. For Schopenhauer, happiness was the reduction or absence of suffering. The safest way of not being very miserable is not to expect to be very happy, he advised. Alternatively, Schopenhauer viewed art and philosophy as more accessible means. He argued that great art reveals the nature and problems of existence without illusions, offering a transcendent experience that provides relief from life's suffering. This perspective made him one of the first to assign significant philosophical value to the arts, earning him the title the Darkest Philosopher. Despite the depth of his work, Schopenhauer's claims about reality and existence remain largely unprovable and, in some respects, unknowable. Attempting to define the nature of the will logically is paradoxical. What exactly the will is, its origin, and its end remain mysteries. His recommendation to overcome the will through ascetic denial also raises questions. If all life operates through the will, can it truly turn against itself, or is it merely will acting upon will? Following Schopenhauer, Friedrich Nietzsche offered a contrasting view. Nietzsche saw the endless cycle of desire and dissatisfaction driven by the will as a positive force, fueling self-overcoming and personal growth, providing life with meaning. This more optimistic interpretation challenges Schopenhauer's pessimism, though neither position can be definitively proven. Schopenhauer's life reflects a familiar pattern, a significant thinker initially ignored, only to be recognized posthumously. A shared trait in such stories is persistence, a refusal to abandon one's views. Schopenhauer never altered his philosophical system, creating his 20s, and consistently built upon it despite early neglect. His legacy is now profoundly important. While some may find his philosophy bleak, others appreciate its honest acknowledgement of suffering and its comforting validation of their experiences. It reveals a reality that can seem cruel and incomprehensible, with mind and body often working against us. His influence extends across arts and philosophy, inspiring composers like Richard Wagner and Gustav Mahler, writers such as Marcel Proust, Leo Tolstoy, and Samuel Beckett, and thinkers including Nietzsche, Sigmund Freud, and Ludwig Wittgenstein. Schopenhauer's work shaped modern thought profoundly. By questioning the value of life and the possibility of meaning, Schopenhauer highlighted an early philosophical challenge facing a growingly agnostic world. His fearless confrontation with existence's nature, including its sufferings, opened new paths for exploring answers from within.